Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us on this webinar. Today, I'm really excited. We are doing a siblings panel webinar. We are here with four wonderful super sibs, as we call them, but we're going to explore what that term means and how we got to where we are. I'm 𝐓𝐰𝐢𝐭𝐚𝐿, the Executive Director of Children's Craniofacial Association, and our facilitator tonight will be Abbey Merrill, the founder of Sibling Strong. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much. We do have one little disclaimer to take care of before we get rolling, and we just want to remind our audience that this session is for informational and educational purposes. We are not here to diagnose or treat any illness or condition or mental health issue. We do not offer specific individualized advice, but we will be sharing from our own personal stories and our own personal experiences. Please understand that the views, thoughts, and opinions expressed in this webinar belong solely to the speakers and not necessarily to Children's Craniofacial Association, the speaker's schools, employers, organizations, committees, or other groups or individuals. So once again, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. I have with us tonight, as I said, Abbey Merrill, our host, Maddie Adams, Justyn Booker, and Hunter McMahan. And with that, Abbey, I'm going to turn it over to you so you can tell us a little bit about the internship you're doing, founding Sibling Strong, and what you hope to accomplish through this panel and webinar.
Okay, so I've recently founded a nonprofit called Sibling Strong that is designed to empower and support glass children. And like Erica said, CCA usually identifies the siblings of children who have facial differences as super siblings, but I've recently developed this new term called glass children, and they're basically, it's not just facial differences. It goes into disabilities or like intellectual disabilities or anything on that spectrum, any sibling of that child. And these children are called glass children, not because they're weak and fragile, because they're very strong and they're easily seen through. And I feel like the biggest thing that really motivated me to start this was growing up, I really felt alone, and I felt like no one understood what I was going through, when that was obviously very untrue, because there are many people who go through what I go through. And I've been a part of CCA all my life, and I've attended many retreats, and I am the youngest of two children. My older sister has Goldenhar Syndrome, and at these retreats we've attended, I've always watched her come into this ballroom full of people that understood her. I was obviously so grateful and so happy for her that she got to experience this support and this love, but I always wanted to experience that too. So after many years of just feeling sorry for myself, I decided to, if anyone's going to start it, why not be you? So that's just a little bit about my story and how I came to be. And with CCA, I really feel like a big part of me, and especially with my sister having a facial difference, I have a lot of similarities to other siblings who have a sibling with a facial difference. So that's why I kind of came into CCA, because they're a very loving and supporting community that I've always felt very welcome with. So and they've always tried to have some sort of sibling program in the past, but there really has not been a set program, especially for older teenagers, which I felt was really in need of. So one day I decided to email Erica and just give it a shot, and she thought it was an amazing idea. So we've been working together, and yeah.
It has been wonderful. Thank you so much for that explanation, Abbey, and just opening up and sharing your story. I think that is the hallmark, and I'm sure we'll uncover more of those feelings and more of those desires to help other siblings. But I really appreciate you reaching out, your candor, and again, agreeing to help with CCA and work on more programs for more people. So it is wonderful. And I love the quote, "If not us, then who? If not now, then when?" So that is
I love that.
really stood out to me when you said that. So wonderful. Well, I'll let you take over with introductions of the panel, and everyone feel free to tell your story as well. in your introduction.
Okay, do you have any volunteers who wants to go first?
I'll go first.
Great.
Hi everybody, my name is Justyn Booker. I'm 20 years old. I am the third child in a house of four. My older sister, 𝐼𝐬𝐢𝐿 Booker, I don't know if you guys probably seen her. She's a facial advocate. She was born with Goldenhar Syndrome, and she's a representative of ccakids also. And growing up with a sibling that has a facial difference, I don't see the difference. I'm gonna be completely honest with you guys. Me and my sister are always best friends. We grew up. We go everywhere together. She's always told me like now, like as she got older, she's told me like she's felt uncomfortable going out sometimes. She's noticed like the stairs, and maybe I didn't honestly notice that. But now she's became like this person that's like, I think it's because we put her out there so much and we didn't like try to hide her from it. And we told her like, no matter what you do in life, you can accomplish anything. Doesn't matter what anyone thinks or looks at you. They're just judging the book by the cover. They'll miss out on the book while everyone else is finishing it. It just feels like she's comfortable. It feels like she's comfortable wherever she's at, and that's what I like. Like it's different. Sorry if I didn't explain that right. But yeah.
Do not worry about it. You're doing great. And I think that's another thing I didn't say in the opener. There's going to be a spectrum of experiences. There are no right or wrong experiences. And your truth is your truth. And that's what we're here to share. And that's why it is a panel, because people are going to come from different places with this topic. So.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's what I got to say.
Totally. Hi, my name is Maddie Adams. My twin sister Liz has Goldenhar Syndrome, and together we host a podcast called Courageously Kind, which is dedicated to spreading kindness and inspiring courage. It was really interesting, I think, growing up as a young kid, as a twin of someone who has a facial difference, not having a facial difference myself. I think people associate the term twin with identical, and that was not our experience, but we are twins in every other sense of the word. We're majoring in the same thing in college. We live together. We're pretty much inseparable. But I really relate to both Abbey and Justyn's story about being a sibling of someone with facial difference. And I'm really looking forward to hearing more about your perspectives for sure.
So I'm next. I'm Hunter. I'm the oldest of three siblings, and my middle brother has Goldenhar syndrome. And we've been coming to CCA for I think 6 or 7 years now, and it's been life-changing and so good for the whole family. And so to introduce my brother a little bit, I think personally for both of us and our whole family, it's just been a really good experience, even compared to a lot of the stories we've heard, like unfortunate stories of a lot of kids that had bullying and a lot of like neglect and things like that. I think we had a really good experience. We were very fortunate, and we put them out there like you were talking about. We put them out there like early on, and we talked like we had speeches to the school, and we like got everyone together. We did choose kind stuff and did all that sort of stuff. And so everybody kind of just knew who he was, knew who we were, and knew like everything's better when you just are kind to each other and love everyone. And that kind of just set him up, and everyone enjoys him. And like he never had to experience bullying or anything like that because everyone just loved each other, and it was just great. And I mean, yeah, it was just really good experience and very fortunate.
Thanks everyone for sharing. I love everyone's like different perspectives. I think that's so cool, like how we're bringing like all of our stories together and kind of like finding similarities and differences. And I think the one question I kind of want to start and guide us with is, how would you describe your journey as a glass child in one word, and why? And I'm not gonna lie, I made this question like 2 weeks ago, and every single day I've been thinking about what word would I describe, because there's so many words, because it's such like literally every word could work. But after a lot of thinking, I kind of decided on a word as resilient, because I just really think it encapsulates like the strengths and adaptability we all have, and how like we navigate such like deep, complex emotions when our siblings are going through some of their challenges because we love them so much, but we never want to see them go through that. But we also like have to see how it affects our parents and obviously how it affects us and other family members. And I just think like, especially, we always have to put on a brave face for everyone. And I feel like, not speaking for anyone, just speaking of myself, I don't mean to be using us. But I feel like with resilient, like I feel like no matter how many times we get knocked down again, well, like it's easier to get back up because like we love our siblings and we love our family. So
That's a great word, Abby. I love that you used resilient. This is kind of a really tough question, though, if I'm being honest. I think the word that comes to mind for me is complex. I don't think there's one sort of way, and I'm sure we'll demonstrate this during this webinar. I don't think there's one way to sort of explain what this experience is like, but rather, I think it's a really nuanced experience. Like you were saying, of course, I love my sister, I love my sibling, and I want what's best for her. It does, sometimes come with some challenges to see her go through difficulties and difficulties with her health or difficulties in, social interactions or that sort of thing from other people, not, her social difficulties, but, the way in which I guess other people interact with people with differences sometimes is challenging. But I think complex, and maybe to add another word onto that, is nuanced for sure.
yeah, that was a really great explanation.
All right. I would say the word I would use is motivation. I see like how far she's came since birth. So it's like she's done gymnastics, track, and she just amazes me every single time she just does something. And it's like a lot of people, like they give them like limits. They tell them like, oh, you probably shouldn't do this, or you should probably like. I know when she did gymnastics, like with her surgery she was getting at the time. I know sometimes they were trying to be very careful about what she was doing, and she still kept going on and on. And there would be days where she would just, it was just surprising. That's another word I could add on there, surprising. But yeah, that's what I've got from it. It's motivating. It just, you can do anything.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very true. I agree. And I can't really narrow it down to one word. I was trying the whole time. I really can't, but I think the biggest thing that comes to mind is tough times create great people. So like I personally haven't like I'm gonna say this over and over again, very fortunately haven't endured tough times compared to a lot of the people that I've met. But that's what's great about CCA is you get to meet a lot of people that have endured those times and you learn from their experiences and they learn from yours. And hearing about those tough times, experiencing those tough times creates great people. And then that creates the advocates that are helping other people through their situations. So that's pretty special about being a sibling.
Like I feel so inspired by my sister. I feel like oftentimes I am a little bit more extroverted maybe than my sister, but I think sometimes she really inspires me to be confident in myself. And you would think that maybe it would be the opposite way around because she is the one with a facial. I'm not, but I totally agree with what you were saying for sure. Yeah. To add on to that, something that like people say to me all the time is that like, oh, she's so lucky to have you. And I always follow that with, and I'm lucky to have her, right? This concept that like that for some reason I am helping her throughout her life journey more than she's helping me is just so not the case. You know what I mean? Our relationship is so mutual. And I think it's a common misconception that people have that maybe a sibling of someone with a glass child, I guess to use the language for that you're using. I think the assumption is that like glass children do all of the support for their siblings, but I really would argue that it is so much more mutual than people might realize.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I get that comment a lot too.
Right?
Yeah, and it's just like so crazy. It just like makes me take a step back and realize like even though how much like it kind of sucks seeing my sibling go through that, but like how lucky I am to like know that depth of like gratitude and love that I can see from her. Okay, so I'm gonna kind of shift gears and move towards a different question. Can you share a moment when you felt particularly proud of yourself and your role as a glass child? And for me, it was kind of like the first time that I ever said no. And between my sister and I's relationship, like I've always been like very much a caretaker for her. And I feel like the first time I kind of took a step back and I kind of realized that even though I love her, I don't have to be that caretaker figure. I can be her sister, was kind of like the catalyst that like helped our relationship in the long run, that kind of took me out of the caretaker position and more of the sister and the friend and the person you go to, instead of the person who is always helping you.
That's super insightful. I just wanted to acknowledge that that's a big one. And I like thought about a lot of relationships I see in the older generation of craniofacial siblings, glass children, and their siblings. And I think that's super powerful. So I just had to acknowledge that. Apologies.
Absolutely. I totally agree with Erica. Yeah. I think it's hard for me to pinpoint maybe necessarily a certain moment or circumstance where I felt proud of myself as a glass sibling, but I think there was a point, and honestly, I think it had to do with growing up a little bit and maturing a little bit and just learning more about myself. But when I started to really talk honestly with my sister about how I felt as a sibling of someone with a facial difference, I think Abby touched on it earlier, but talking about keeping a brave face and not particularly, I think when talk about like health issues and surgeries and things like that, I didn't want to show my sister that I was maybe nervous or worried for her because I didn't want her to feel more worried, you know what I mean? But when we got to a point in our relationship where I could be honest about how I was feeling, I think she really was able to open up about how she was feeling as well. And I'm just really proud that we are at that point in our sibling relationship where we can be totally honest with one another.
Yeah, I thought that was really well spoken. I really like that. I definitely agree with that.
Yeah.
All right. I don't know if I have a moment I felt like a glass child, but I know like around like seventh, maybe eighth grade, I noticed like maybe people were, I guess, talking or saying stuff, and I always have my sister's back, like regardless. Like, but it kind of made me like wonder a little bit, maybe just I have her back so much. I guess like you kind of do think about who got your back at like so at some point. But I know she got my back though. But it's like in like other ways. But yeah.
So, yeah, I just like you guys, I can't think of a specific moment, but off of what you guys have said, I think it is really important to step back from your role because obviously you're all amazing siblings, and what a amazing sibling would do is like be ready to stand up for their sibling and want to protect them and like have the best for them at all times. But it is really important for you to step back from that role a little bit, still be there for them, but you gotta remember to be their sibling and their friend as well as be there for them, because any good friend is going to be there for you even if it wasn't your sibling.
That's
Yeah,
exactly what I was trying to like kind of say. Like you just gotta be like your best friend with
Yeah.
your sibling a little bit. You guys need those moments to
Hmm.
like really just express your emotions and really just talk about real stuff that's going on and how you really feel about it. I feel like sometimes people are so worried about what everyone's gonna think about what's going on in their head, and like they're gonna look crazy in front of everyone else. That sometimes when you actually just say it out loud, everyone's like, "Woo!" Like that was good. Like I needed to hear that. Like okay, let's go back and forth. Let's figure this out. Why are you feeling like this? And we can just go back to the drawing board and fix all these situations. But
yeah.
yeah.
I feel like kind of I was thinking about this while everyone was talking, kind of like did pinpoint like a specific moment where I was proud of myself was
Mm-hmm.
when I was a freshman in high school and my sister was a senior. We were both attending the same high school. And I remember like a specific day, it was like an average day. She was driving us to school and it was the first time that I was like, Emily, like, did you hear what happened at school? And it was the first time we were able to have this like sister to sister relationship and talk
Mm-hmm.
about like things that were happening and not just like, oh, you're gonna have to have another surgery and stuff like that, where we could just connect as two teenage girls and not two sisters who definitely have a lot of like medical stuff going on. Okay, so I'll move on to the next question. I feel like this is a really important question because when I was kind of stating a little bit about myself in the beginning, like I felt alone and I really didn't know what to do in those moments when I felt alone. And the question I'm going to bring up is, what strategies did you use then, if you're aware, and what strategies do you use now to cope with feelings of being overlooked or invisible? And a lot of these feelings I would get were when my sister would come home from the hospital, and all my family would be surrounding her because yes, she just endured this, so it's like such a hard surgery, but like, and she totally deserved all that attention because she needed it to help recover. But I always feel like I was kind of invisible and in the shadows. And I feel like my all-time favorite strategy to kind of reinforce like my importance in the world was when I was struggling with feeling like not important, I would write down all the qualities I love about myself, not including anything physical, on post-it notes, and I would stick them all around my room. And anytime I walked by them, I had to I took myself in the mirror and say it, and I wasn't allowed to take the post-it note off my wall until I believed it. So I felt like that was a really impactful way to kind of like install my importance within myself, even though that my family members and everyone around me believed it, because the most important thing you can do is believe in yourself, like everyone was touching on. So
I definitely like the post-it notes on the wall. Like, yeah, that definitely be helping because you see that around the wall and it gets in your mind and it stays in there a little bit.
yeah.
I wouldn't say I had a moment where like I felt alone. I felt when my sister went to surgery, we all went to surgery with her. Like we took the whole car, everyone went to down to surgery, and everyone came back, and then we just chilled with her until she got better again. That was basically how we just did that. But yeah, I never really felt alone when it came to like her situation.
Yeah, that's a totally different feeling. Yeah, I
Yeah.
really like, as like kind of like how our stories are definitely different, and how like even though our siblings have the same condition and
Mhm.
they go through a lot of stuff, like how different one story can be, and how people's feelings really are just different. I think it's just really cool just to see all the different perspectives.
All right.
I'm kind of in the same boat with you, Abby. I never went to the hospital when Liz had surgeries. She had one surgery that I went to that was supposed to be really minor, and actually it was not minor at all. There were some complications, and so that was like a really stressful experience. And I think, yeah, I was trying so hard not to show her that I was worried or nervous, and like trying to keep it cool for my parents. And I think that's something that like as glass children we sort of take on, is like trying to keep it cool, like even for our parents that love us and care about us, we don't want to make them more worried or more upset, that sort of thing. Sort of getting off topic from your question, but it's just really interesting to hear both of your perspectives, and like you were saying, Abby, how our perspectives are different, but we do have these underlying feelings of, you know, of trying to be the strong one and the brave one for everybody else.
Yeah.
For most of my brother's surgeries, we all went to the hospital. We were all there for him because most of his major surgeries were when we were very little. He had open heart surgery when he was a newborn, and then he had his ear surgery when he was little too. And then he just had more like smaller surgeries down the road, like his hand and his ear again and things like that. But we were all there for those and there for him and just like you. So I never really had a time where I felt neglected really, but I feel like if ever there was like a time where even that happened a little bit, I feel like you're just remembering that they need extra care at the moment and that's what they need, and you letting them have that is kind of your form of loving them, is letting them have that time of extra care, and you just get to kind of just be their hype man and sit aside for a second.
I think to sort of get back to your question, Abby, I just remembered what it was. I loved what you talked about self-care and about caring for yourself and showing yourself that love, you feel like, you know, your family members are maybe focused more on your sibling. Obviously, like you explained, they need that attention and that love and support to recover. But I loved what you were saying about finding that love and that sort of, I guess, I don't want to say attention, but like that love and care for yourself, and learning to find that in those moments where your family might be focused on your siblings, for sure.
Yeah.
I have a question that was not on the list, but this is making me kind of think about it. Obviously, we can point out that family logistics a lot of times are beyond parents' control. So sometimes they can't bring everybody. So imagining for a minute that one or more of the siblings have to stay behind, and they feel maybe a little shuffled off, or even if they're staying behind because they don't want to go to the hospital, because that is a real fear too, that some people don't like that environment. What could parents do to try to help the people, even if it's grandparents that have to stay behind, but specifically siblings, if they have to stay behind? Is there a way or any suggestions that you can think of, thinking back to your younger selves, that would ease that a little?
I feel like the biggest thing my mom always did for when my grandparents would stay with me is like I am very organized, and I like things in order. And even like when my parents come, like I don't like my routine disrupted. So me and my mom, like we always sat down when we like typed up lists on the computer for like my daily routine, like when I get from school, like what practice I go to, what activities I go to. So my grandparents kind of like had a handle on everything. And even though like everything else in my world was like out of control, like my routine and what I did was still in control. And as well as like my favorite food, like I love mac and cheese. My mom always bought mac and cheese and put it in the fridge. So like especially on the days where it was hard for me when my sister was having surgery, like I could come home and have my favorite food there. But I think just like the most important thing is just like reminding the sibling that they're loved. Even though that their parents may not be with them, it's not their fault, because it's not. It's a hard situation. And even though they may feel overlooked, they're loved. At the end of the day, they're important and they're loved.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that, Abby. Something that I used to do when I would stay home and say my grandparents were staying with me while Liz and my parents were at the hospital for surgeries is we would kind of try and treat it like a holiday, and we would decorate so that when Liz came home, there was signs and banners and we made cupcakes. And looking back on it in hindsight, I do feel kind of bad that I was baking cupcakes and she was having a surgery, but it definitely made me feel special in that moment. And I think it made her feel special when she came home to all that love and all that, you know, attention. I remember we like cut out snowflakes. You know how you make those snowflakes out of like coffee filters? We did that in like July just to like have fun and decorate the house. So yeah, I think there are simple little ways, like you were saying about your favorite food being in the fridge, to make glass siblings feel loved and supported in those moments when their siblings maybe are disconnected from them.
I love that. It sounds like such a like not like to like make the bad situation just a little bit easier and a little bit funner.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I feel like throughout all of our discussions, we've kind of touched on like how our siblings can like kind of affect our perspective on like empathy and compassion. And I really feel like if it wasn't for my sister, I wouldn't have this level of gratitude and this level of like appreciation for everything.
I definitely feel the same way about that. Like, I appreciate and I'm thankful for so much things. I feel like so much more because, like, yes, I see, like, I try not to say that we're different, but there is a big difference. And she goes out every day, and honestly, I understand everyone's gonna look and they're gonna think, and that's in your head every day. Imagine that. And I just gotta say, that just shows me how strong someone is. And it just shows you don't really gotta be worried about all that. It's always gonna be okay. Just be yourself.
Yeah, I think I see a big movement right now about um I've seen a big movement with about like family members with um Down syndrome. So like they're bringing more light to like when you know someone that has something, the more you know that they're just best and brightest people that, like, if they can make it through the hard things and be happier than everyone else around them, you can do the same. You can just, I don't know. Yeah, you can do the same.
Totally agree. I think my sister has taught me so much about self-love and also treating others with empathy, and the way that she forgives people that maybe, maybe even though they have good intentions, maybe hurt her feelings or something like that. The way that she treats them with kindness and empathy has taught me so much. And I feel like I definitely would not be the person I am today had it not been for my sister, for sure.
We have definitely like highlighted like all of our like positives with being a glass child, and I feel like there's honestly for me there's so many pros that outweigh like the very few cons that I have. Not that cons are negative, but just like just kind of sum it up. I kind of want to move into like what has been the most rewarding aspect of your journey being a glass child, and I feel like kind of touching what I said before is just like watching my sister like be happy and just knowing that like not what I did is just like just watching her struggle and then seeing her being happy, and then like I don't know, just seeing like how she can make the best out of every like bad little situation, and just like kind of like back to like the empathy, like just how it just like changes your perspective on everything. And like just like the simple things that I like touch about is like sorry, especially like when like I think about it, like if you compare my sister and I, like say we're in the same class at school and like we're both struggling with the same piece of homework, but when you look at me, I'm struggling with homework, but I'm not struggling with my health. And you look at my sister and you see she's struggling with homework, but she's also struggling with health, but she's able to manage both. And how it's not like she leads a double life, but it kind of like she is. Like,
I agree on that one. That
yeah,
was like it's like a little switch a little bit.
yeah. Like
Yeah,
she,
it kind of
sorry, you can go.
that's kind of why I use the word motivating, because then it kind of like I do reflect on myself sometimes when I look at her living this double life, and I'm just like, come on, I gotta pick it up. Come on, I gotta do better than this. But yeah, motivating.
Yeah, definitely.
I think you guys have said some amazing things, and not to put on therapist hat, Erica, because I'm certainly not a therapist hat, but I want you to appreciate out of all this, we wanted to bring forward some of the harder things about being a glass child. And I am so amazed and in awe that you four have spent, the better part of an hour talking about the positives. And so I love that. I definitely don't want to downplay that. That's incredible. But I really want to, it just speaks volumes to how your perspectives have been changed. You have been changed immensely by the experience of being a glass child, and it's made you more empathetic. It's made you more resilient. It has made you see the darker side of life and come out as positive people. So that alone is huge. And I love how you're working through it. And I hope that that is encouraging to the people that watch this, and that they can, one thing that I don't remember who just said it, I wrote it down, but whoever just said it changes your perspective on everything. And I would love for the younger kids, the 12-year-olds, the 13-year-olds watching this, to know that whatever your situation is now, maybe you are home alone, maybe you're home alone with some of these people who aren't creating the party atmosphere. Your perspective in a few more years will be different, and that's okay. The hard times right now are toughening you. They are making you great. And so I just wanted to take the second to recognize that the positivity that's just radiating from this group is so beautiful, but it is not because you're just naturally amazing. You guys have earned this. You have been through things. You have risen to the challenge of being a caretaker for your sibling, of being a safe space for your own parents. Like, that is something you've had to do that a lot of people who do not have siblings with disabilities have to do. So that's a credit to all of you, and never underestimate your gift that you share with the younger kids out there, because they will look to you and they need your support. Because for some of them, like I said, they're not to that perspective reflection point yet where it seems like, I see why this happened, or I see how I've grown from it.
Yeah. Honestly, I don't even feel like I'm there. Like, I feel like in some aspects, but I don't even, like, I feel like I'll get there eventually, but I feel like even now, like, I always catch myself in, like, this guilt that, like, I get to lead this, like, perfect, like, I don't want to use the word normal. Like, I get to live this life without worrying about my health and being able to do all these sports and, go out and go for a walk and not have to worry about when my next surgery is. And I used to get so guilty that I, like, wouldn't let myself enjoy those moments. And I really had to, like, take a step back and be like, you were allowed to feel bad, but you're not allowed to let it take over you, which is something I've really struggled with for many years. Whenever my sister was having a surgery, like, I wouldn't allow myself to do anything fun. And not that I should be celebrating, because whatever I'm doing, I'm still worrying about her, but I shouldn't deprive myself from everything, because I know deep down that my sister would want me to continue living my life, even if she had to take a pause in hers.
That perspective, I think, is really valuable, and I think some people that are watching this can really relate to that for sure.
You were saying like the perception and like how we're so positive. There is a negative side. There is negative sides. Like Hunter was saying about the bullying and all that stuff. I had to deal with all that and like growing up, and I always defended her, and I was always like her little backbone at first, until she got her voice and everything, so she could stand up for herself. But yeah, I think kids need to learn to be really nicer these days. I don't know what's going on, but like from some of the stories that I hear from like other families and other siblings about their brother or sister being bullied at school, and that's insane. Like kids really just need to like calm it down a little bit. Sometimes your words really do hurt people. They really do affect people, and that's one of the biggest things I've noticed too. Like going to school and then not even my sister, just noticing if, let's say, someone was bullying somebody or someone said something to somebody, and you could just tell, you just get that they had that look on their face, and you could just tell something's not right. It really makes you think. You might need to think twice next time you talk, and because these words really do affect people. But yeah.
It is very true.
Yeah, I think you bring up a really good point, which is that as siblings of people with facial differences, I feel like we really take on a role as protector, right? Even though my sister and I are the same age, I usually feel like I am the older one, despite her being 2 minutes older. But I usually feel that responsibility to like make sure that if people are saying maybe something that's not kind, or even if it was well-intentioned, is not well received, I think we do take on that role, and remembering that we're only people and we can't control the actions of other people despite how much we want to, sometimes is a really frustrating thing. But it's something I've learned, I think, as I've gotten older, is that I can only do what I can do, and I can be there to support my sister, but I can't control the actions of other people.
Yeah. I feel like we've really focused on our siblings and like not so much ourselves. And I feel like a really important thing I've been thinking about lately is like how my experience with my sister has influenced how I treat people in a way, and what characteristics I look for in people. And I really think the biggest thing I look for is this is something that I've really noticed in my patterns with friends and my friend groups, is I look for people who are like one of their biggest character attributes is mature. Because I feel like within my life, um like I have to be a caretaker in some aspects. And at home, I go home and not to say that I don't love taking care of my sister. It's definitely not the first thing I would want to do. Not that I like take care of her like an abnormal amount, but like I help her here and there anyways. And I feel like when I go out with like in my friend group, like I just want to have like a different space where I don't have to like be kind of worried about someone. and have that constant fear of who's gonna think of her, like, what if someone doesn't like her, blah blah blah.
I have like somewhat similarities. It's like I feel like I have maybe I get more experiences than she does. And some of those things I'm just like growing up in life, like going on, like, I guess I don't know if any of your siblings like date or anything like that, but I guess like with a facial difference, I honestly I know it's different. And
Definitely.
sometimes they do want to understand, like, oh, like, how is that? How are those things? Like, how's, like, my sister turned 21 recently, so she was like, in the beginning, it was like, how is it like going out? How's it like going out to like clubs and like doing all that and like all that stuff? And I'm just like, you just gotta experience it.
Yeah.
And I know sometimes when some people, like I said, they give them limitations. Some people see someone with a facial difference and like it's like, dang, they're 21. They don't want to party. They just gotta be in the hospital. No, they want to go outside. They want to live it up. They want to have a social life, and they want to be the life of the party too. I just feel like people gotta stop limiting them and kicking them out of the circle just because of what they look like, and really just be a welcome hand and just bring them in and show them around a little bit.
Yeah, definitely.
And I'm jumping in again, and I do apologize for jumping in so much. I try to stay out, but it made me think, Abby, with what you were saying, and Justyn, with what you were saying. When you have a facial difference or when you're a glass child, the stakes are just higher. The stakes in life are just higher. You know that if you're a person with a facial difference and you put yourself out there, you can get way more rejection than just, everyday average rejection. And then, Abby, to what you were talking about, you don't want to be in the shallow friend group. You don't swim in the shallow waters because you've seen the depths of life. You know the fragility of life. You know the meaning of how serious things can be, of the seriousness of words. And so I think it just makes me, the way that I would sum that up is the stakes are higher for both the glass child and the person with the facial difference. And that's probably a bond that families can share. But I think a lot of it has to do with how much and how you navigate through that. If you become each other's friends, kind of like Maddie was saying, once you are able to get past some of those roles where you have to be caretaker or you have to be advocate, protector, that puts that separation between you, you could definitely experience a deeper friendship because you've been swimming in the depths of life since your sibling was born.
I just thought of something in my head and I really wanted to say this. Sometimes actually your sibling, the one who's in the hospital, it feels like the glass child. Sometimes you gotta really sit with them and just ask them, like, what's up, and like how do you really feel about life? And sometimes the thing is, like, they're blaming themselves. They don't understand why, like, obviously it wasn't like you can't control why you were born this way, but sometimes they're just that's their first thought, like, why is this me? Why does everyone have to look at me when I go out? Why does everyone have to do this and why does everyone have to do that? And sometimes we're so like, oh, they're going to the hospital, they're getting the attention they need. Sometimes that's not the actual attention they need around them. They're just people just trying to make them feel better, but they need someone who's going to actually sit with them and be real and treat them like a real person, not someone treating them like a patient a little bit.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I remember very specific conversations with my sister when I would tell her that sometimes that, I feel overlooked, or I feel like you get more attention than I do. And she's like, really? Like, I thought it's always been you. I was like, that was just so eye-opening because I always thought that, like, oh my gosh, like, you're always in the hospital. You're always the one, getting gifts and, getting cards, but you, like, don't feel that. And I thought that was a really interesting point you brought up, Justyn, because I totally agree with that.
Yeah, but I was like thinking, like, you gotta think about your sister. Is she thinking like, dang, how's she think about you? She's probably like, oh, she does all the sports. She gets to have all the nice friends. Dang, she gets to do all these other things. She gets to be home while I'm at the surgery. So it's like there's two sides that way to look at things. And once you guys actually talk about the sides and level it out, you guys feel so much better. Trust me.
Yeah. So I feel like a big kind of block in my sister and I's kind of to talk about more personal, like our relationship. I feel like especially with our relationship, like we always have not been as open with each other, because I feel like between us, like it always has been like kind of like an elephant in the room, that we're different, but we're also so alike, but we're also so different. And I feel like that really like wasn't talked about with us growing up. So like it kind of like, and I always kind of like envied like sibling relationships between two siblings who did not have to go through what my sister and I, especially my sister, had to go through. And I always had this jealousy. And I feel like people like didn't really understand. Like obviously I was so grateful and so lucky that I got to experience, like I would not trade my sister for anything in the world, but I would always have these thoughts like, what if my sister didn't have facial difference? What if she didn't have to have surgeries? And it's just like, I don't like to get myself lost in that what if, because it's not like that, and I don't wish my life to be different, but it's just always something that I sometimes thought about.
I definitely relate to that. And as a twin, I always wondered, why was it her and not me, But I think that like what all of you were saying about just having that perspective on life and knowing that we are both struggling, but we have different struggles, but we can be there for each other and support each other. And that open communication with each other throughout all of that is so, so valuable.
Can definitely relate to that one too. The the what if, because I've thought about it before. What if what if it was me? What if we didn't even have that in our family? And like you said, I kind of squashed that train of thought really fast, because is it interesting to think about for a second? Yes, it's interesting, but at the same time, you're thinking about, if you didn't have that, you wouldn't have the level of empathy and the level of maturity that you have now, and the outlook on life, and you would just be like everyone else, just thinking about yourself all the time and thinking you're the main character of everything. And when you have this level of clarity after having your sibling, then you realize that you're in a life with everyone else too, and like you gotta love everyone the same as you love yourself.
I feel like the question I really want to end on is, looking forward, what are your hopes and aspirations for your personal growth and development with as being glass child with your sibling? And I feel like for me, if I were to answer that, I feel like I finally have gotten to this place of like accepting for what I can't control. And I feel like it really used to get to me, like just like feeling like my life is so out of control, and that I just feel so bad for my sibling, and I would do anything to change it, which I definitely would. But I feel like I've learned to like accept the bad, appreciate the good. And I feel like if I was talking to another younger glass child, I would definitely say just to appreciate what you have in the moment, because even though it may suck what's going on, like you have to make joy out of whatever you can in your life. Like things are going to get better, things are going to get worse, and you just have to learn how to roll with the punches.
That's great, Abby. I totally, totally relate to everything you said. I think I love that you mentioned letting go of things that you can't control. I definitely need to work on that. So I think that's a personal goal of mine for sure. But I loved what you talked about, taking the good with the bad and learning to let go of the things you can't control.
I would say, as a sibling, moving on forward, keep pushing. There's and be thankful. There's a lot of things that we're not thankful for on a regular day basis, and sometimes when we do get in those like sad moods where we like kind of like down ourselves down a little bit and we doubt ourselves about a lot of things, I just want you to think in your head, dang, my sibling is literally living right now. They're yes, they have like a difference and they're still waking up every morning. They're still pushing. They're still making jokes to make you laugh every day to try to help you keep going through your day. So just keep pushing and be thankful.
I was honestly going to say the exact same things, and just adding to that, I think what I would do moving forward is just remembering to take everything that's bad or not ideal, and just remembering that that's just making you stronger in the long run and making you appreciate the good even more. So yeah.
Definitely. Thank you guys all for coming and for sharing all your stories. It takes a lot of courage to do that. And I'm really grateful that we were able to all come together and be vulnerable and talk about our feelings and our experiences.
Thank you so much for having us. I just want to say thank you for inviting me.
It was great to meet you guys.
Yeah, great to meet you
Great
guys.
to meet
And
you
thank
guys
you so
too.
much, Abby. Yeah, thank you for what you guys are doing. Thank you to Erica too. You guys are wonderful.
CCA is so thankful for the support that we receive from people across the country who count on and care about the programming that we provide. Gifts of any size for our growing virtual audience help fulfill the mission of empowering and giving hope to individuals and families affected by facial differences. Thank you so much for joining us and watching this webinar. We love to see your comments, your suggestions, and feedback on more programs you would like to see in the future. Have a great night. Have a great day, whatever time of day you're watching this. Bye-bye.